Social. Sorry, had a couple of technical glitches there. Got to the boat dock nice and early this morning and started, got the stream ready, did all the thumbnail and everything. And then at 8 o'clock, just as it turned 8 o'clock here, I pressed the button. To start the show. And it said, oh, the orientation's wrong. It wants to be in portrait, but you want to be in landscape, and you're gonna have to change the orientation. So I did. And then the whole app crashed and it wouldn't let me get back to my stream that I had set up half an hour ago. Anyway, you don't care about that. You just care about saying hello, everyone out there in YouTube land. I'm on Ginger Island in Bocas del Toro, in the darklands of Bocas del Toro, the Tierra Oscura, which literally means dark earth, like dark soil, but we call it the darklands because it sounds like something from Lord of the Rings. Manscape framing, says Donkey. I don't really know what that means, but yes. Morning, says Tim Ballum. Hello, morning. Welcome. Jenny, hello. So, I mean, these are a bit different, these shows. They're not necessarily talking about what's in the news. They're more talking about you and me and just what, how we're feeling about stuff. I don't need to give you a rundown of what's happened. I mean, Trump won. Archbishop of Canterbury has resigned over this horrific story of serial abuse by this horrific man, John Smith, and the subsequent cover-up. This could have been stopped years earlier had the literal Archbishop of Canterbury, Justin Welby, actually done something about it, but he didn't because, religion. Anyway, so what I was thinking about this morning, the reason why I picked this thumbnail is this. It's like a portrait framing, landscaping framing, manscape. I'm sorry, Donkey, you completely lost me. It's probably too early in the morning for me. I know it's 1 o'clock in the afternoon for most of you. But yeah, one of the things I was thinking about this morning was just how, like, pretty much every morning for the last 8 years, we've woken up and gone, oh God, what now? From probably the 2015 election, so maybe 9 years. But the build up to the EU referendum, which was just so dispiriting and cruel and obnoxious and drove people apart forcibly in the case of the actual Brexit, but also because people just didn't like the fact that their neighbours voted to get them out of the country. And then we had all the Brexit stuff. It was total stress. Trump won. We had 4 years of Trump. Then we had a COVID bloody thing, and it was such a stress. Every day you'd wake up and have to check the news and go, "Oh God, what now?" And then we had the Tories under Boris Johnson, and then under Truss, and then this lame duck government. How can you be a lame duck government with an 80-seat majority? Tory government that didn't know what it wanted to do, just wanted to deport people to Rwanda because that's something that would help somehow. And we had all that, and we had bloody James Cleverly and Kemi Badenoch and Rishi Sunak and all these absolute knobheads running the country. And then Labour won, and we had 1 week. 1 fucking week. That's what we had, where we could, I don't know, go, oh, for a change. 1 week. That's all that we were given. And you wonder why I think there's no God. Anyway, so what happened at the end of that week? Biden did his horrifically bad debate with Trump. And it was horrifically bad for Biden because although the Trump fans don't care if he's a rambling old man who talks a load of shit, people who would support the Democrats, would support Biden, wanted someone who was erudite, could actually string a sentence together, didn't just lose track of what they were saying halfway through what was I talking about again? Exactly. 1 fucking week. That's what we got. 1 week. And then the rails were locked in motion, and Trump was going to win. And when people asked me, why do you think Trump's going to win? I say, because all the billionaires in the world want him to win. The Saudis want him to win. The Russians want him to win. Vladimir Putin wants him to win. Elon Musk wants him to win to keep him out of jail. Benjamin Netanyahu wants him to win so he can absolutely raise Gaza to the ground and murder everyone in Gaza, which is what he plans to do and what he will do once Trump is elected. Well, he has been elected, but once he becomes president. You've got to understand, all of the bad people in the world who have money wanted this to happen. And, I got buoyed up towards the end by the fact that Kamala did really well coming into the race. She was ahead in all the polls. But then in the last couple of weeks in the election, the wheels started coming off, and you were seeing sites like 538 give a 50-50 chance, or a 52-48 chance to Trump for winning. And the Trump winning is something that many of us, I guess, on the left didn't even want to think about, because it was just too horrific. It was just oh my God, seriously? This guy's going to pardon all the people who were January the 6th rioters, who led to the death of 2 police officers and caused millions of dollars of damage to the seat of America's parliament. And there was just nothing. There was nothing that there's nothing that Trump won't do. I mean, we're going to wake up every day for the next 4 years going, oh fuck, what now? Oh fuck, what's he done now? Oh fuck, he's done. Oh shit. Oh fuck. Oh what? And where are the silver linings? Because we thought, didn't we, that if we helped out, if we all came together, if we pushed for a common goal, like the end of apartheid in South Africa, or the end of drop the debt, the Jubilee campaign to drop the debt in Africa, which was successful. But now these African countries are indebted to they're indebted to China. You can't stop fighting. We thought, oh yay, we've got marriage equality, fantastic, yay, we've finally got marriage. That means great, and you can't discriminate against gay people anymore. Fantastic. Okay, so but we're just going to discriminate against trans people. Yeah, and we're going to deny them gender affirming care. Yeah, why? Don't know. Don't like them. Don't want them to be a thing. So if we deny them care, hopefully they'll just shut up and go away. Great. What a great plan. So we have to keep fighting for that. Women's rights. I mean, I am from a country where it was still legal to rape your wife until about 1992. And there was no such thing as a no-fault divorce until literally a couple of years ago. So picture this. There is a 74-year-old woman who has found out that her husband is a criminal. Let's say a criminal. He's a criminal. Let's say he's done some really horrific things, right? And she says, right, that's it. I'm divorcing you. And he says, no, I do not want to get a divorce. And then under British law, that woman would have to wait 5 years to get divorced. 5 years is a very long time when you're that age. Yeah, it's a very, very long time. Maybe you find someone else who you want with you in your autumn years, someone to hold your hand, But no, they can't have the same rights as the husband who, I don't know, let's say he beat you up. No, you're still married to him. The law says you're still married to him until a judge says otherwise. And for a judge to say otherwise, it's going to take 5 freaking years because the husband doesn't want to do it. Equality. They thought in the 70s that Roe versus Wade, it said that it was a principle. I got this wrong the other day. I said it was a principle of freedom. It's actually something to do with property rights or something. It's a bit of a weird one, but the way that the Constitution was interpreted is that The state can't tell a woman what she can and cannot do with her own body. But apparently it can. So that's come back. Yeah. And then you had referendums to put abortion statutes on the books, like in Florida, which didn't pass because they decided to make it a 60% pass margin. 60%. In a referendum where over 50%, but let's just say 50% of the people voting in that fucking referendum didn't have to worry about it. They would never have to worry about it. Never in their life would they be pregnant and have to worry about the fact they were pregnant. In fact, it was a lot more than that, because if you think about women who were too old to have babies, then maybe you could argue that it was something like 75%. I don't know the actual figures, but it was a lot of the people who voted in that had no skin in the game. And they wanted a 60% majority. Gerrymander her body, says Donkey. Yeah. So we thought that things were going the right way. Someone's just mentioned being Jewish. Yeah. We thought that people had learnt the lessons of the Holocaust. We thought that we'd watched Schindler's List and gone, okay, never again. That's not going to happen again. Is it? And yet, it does seem in certain sectors of the progressive left, Jews and trans people are fair game for some reason, for bigotry. And it really pisses me off that there's this idea on the right that all Muslims must apologize for 9/11. All Muslims must apologize for this and that, whatever, terrorists have done around the world. Nothing to do with them. Probably from another country. Probably speak a completely different language. Just all they have in common is they share the same religion. But they might even share the same flavor of that religion. They might be a Sunni. They might be a Shiite. They might be a Sufi. God damn it. And now, you get the same with other groups like Jews. What Israel is doing is not the fault of any Jews that live in the UK. It really isn't. And you shouldn't be running around screaming at anyone who you meet who's Jewish. It's like, you should apologize for the crimes that your government's committing. And I'm like, their government's this government, mate. The Israeli government's not their government. And a lot of people in Israel don't like what the government's doing over there. And although Israel has the same proportion of knobheads as the rest of us, it is completely inappropriate to go around asking everyone who is Jewish why these crimes that are being committed by other Jewish people on the other side of the world are being committed, in the same way that you would think it was wrong for someone on the right to say that about Muslim people, or someone to say about trans people. Oh, look, there's been a trans criminal. This trans person has done something bad, like one of them. So we're going to hold them up on a pedestal and say, hey, look at this one bad trans person. We're going to have to take rights away from all trans people now in case another trans person commits a crime, which is absolutely demonstrably fucking bonkers. Well, bonkers. It's disgraceful. It's absolutely disgraceful. And it just goes to show, like, I know yesterday I was talking about being able to sort of do that digital detox and turn off and walk away. And I'd love to do that, I'd love to just walk into the sunset forever. The littlest hobo. There's a voice keeps on calling me, all that jazz. But you can't, can you? Because you can't trust the world just to get on with stuff and to not be a twat. Unfortunately, there are so many people out there, and we saw them. They voted for Trump, knowing he's a rapist. Like, how can you sit down and have dinner with someone who voted for a rapist to be the most powerful man in the world? Like, imagine it was a school. Imagine it was a school and your kids were at that school, and that person put someone who was a known paedophile, predatory paedophile, in the role of head teacher of that school. Would you sit down and have dinner with them? What did you do? Did you take your kids out to school? Did you have any choice? Could you take the kids out to school? Don't know. Not everyone could, I guess. It's one of those things where I kind of thought my life would be at this point just having fun. Done the hard yakka, done something spectacular, got people's attention, entertained a few, and then from now on in, I just get to do what I want to do, travel around the world, take you with me, have a good time all the time. That's what I would have liked. But no, we kept getting dragged back into politics, dragged back in. And I'm not like Phil. I don't like talking about politics. I'd much rather talk about other stuff. I'd rather talk about pop culture and travel and random facts. That's my cup of tea. Well, this is my cup of tea actually. Mm. I've got to say, it tastes a bit metallic, and I realise why it tastes metallic is because this is rainwater. This is boiled rainwater that I'm drinking, and it's come off the roof of the house, which is metal. So that's why my water tastes metallic. I think I'm going to have to put what's it called, bottled water, in the kettle from now on. Hi, rainwater. Graham says, Calvel. Hello. But yeah, so this isn't a new thought. I know people like John Stewart have also said it about this whole thing of like, you just have to keep fighting. You can't let your guard down, because inch by inch you keep banging on the closed doors and eventually the doors will open. But once those doors do open, you can't rest on your laurels, because there's lots of people who more than anything else in the world want to close that freaking door again. And I'll talk about something that I mentioned in the other show the other day. Like the fact that there are so few progressive voices who are rich, who have the money to put together something like a progressive ecosphere for content creators on our side, is so dispiriting. But it makes sense, because people who are rich for a reason. Some of the most generous people I've ever met have Graham, is there space to cuddle? David, that's a bit inappropriate, mate. Come on. Sorry, you've thrown me off what I was saying now. What the fuck was I talking about? Can't remember. Oh well. I'm getting old. I'm getting old in my old age. Yeah, Blue Sky added 4 million accounts in the last few days. Really? Do people like Blue Sky? Everyone's telling me to go over to Blue Sky now. Ernest Hemingway of Panama. Oh God, I hope I don't end up the same way as Ernest. Old Ernie. There's a picture of me somewhere on a hammock reading Hemingway. What book was it? I think it was The Old Man and the Sea. Maybe it was The Sun Also Rises. I don't know. God, Hemingway's a great writer. I mean, really, really horrible stuff to read, because his stories are so miserable. But, still at the same time, bloody good writer. Liked his short sentences. Svak says, I've heard stories of schools covering up for bad teachers, you know what I mean, because they don't have enough teachers, not just in school, to replace them. Always shocks me to hear stuff like that. Yeah. And then tabloids are going absolutely cock-a-loop about VAT being added to private schools, which 93% of us, I guarantee, will never have to worry about that. I think you were saying some of the poorest people, are some of the more generous. Yes, thank you, Wayne. Put me back on track. When I travelled, especially in places like West Africa, I travelled through Mali and then down into Guinea and then into Sierra Leone, which I really liked, and then Liberia, and over to Cote d'Ivoire, Togo, Benin, Burkina Faso, and Niger and Nigeria, and these places that I went to, like I'll be in a bush taxi, which is basically, they call them a set place in the French-speaking countries. 7 places. They're meant for like 7 people, right? 7 passengers. So you imagine like a long Citroen. I think it was a Citroen. It was a French car, for a Citroen or a Peugeot or something, or a Renault. And it was a lot. It was like a hearse almost, and it had 2 rows of seats, 2 rows of back seats. So you could fit 3, and then 3, and then 1 in the front, and then you had the driver. Okay, set place, 7 places. The one that I was in, going through Guinea, had 5 people on the back, 5 people in the middle, and 2 people on the front row. It was a 12 place. And I was one of the people, sorry, on the front seat, on the passenger seat, right? So I had to share the passenger seat with another guy. This was driving through the fucked up roads of the jungle, like potholed roads of the jungle, crawling along at about 5 miles an hour for 2 days. And just I had the guy who had obviously got there before me. It's on the way to Conakry, the capital of Guinea. The guy who got there before me had the plum part of the seat, which was the bit by the door, right? So I had the bit with one pump cheek on the handbrake, right? So they put a folded up towel on the handbrake to make it a little bit more comfortable as we bumped and grinded through these. Bloody hell. Thinking back, I'm just like, what the hell? What the hell, Graham? What were you even thinking? Anyway, so there's roughing it and then there's roughing it. But the people that I met when we stopped off at these little villages were always so kind and generous and would come over to me and start a conversation, sometimes in broken English, sometimes a bit of French. And they'll want to know what I was doing and what I was up to. Not in a nasty way of like, oh, what the hell are you doing in my village? But like in a sincere, like, oh, why are you here? You know? And they would share. They would share what they had. I always remember like people just sitting down with me at the side of the road and giving me a bit of bread that they were eating and say, here, have this. I'm like, oh, it's okay. No, please, take it. I'm like, okay. And I eat the bread because, you know, you don't say no when someone gives you something like that. And yet the richest, I'm getting to the point now, the richest people I know, generally, not all of them, don't want to piss any of my friends off here, but it seems to be the richer you are, the less likely you are to spend money on things that would actually help. And I really mean that in ways that, like, I think there's a thing with celebrities that they'll pick a particular charity and they'll say, yeah, so I'm going to raise money for this charity. But often you'll find that they'll go on a show and they'll ask you for money for that charity. Do you know what I mean? Like, isn't that a bit bad? Like, why are they asking me? You're the rich people. You know, they're celebrating that Comic Relief makes £3 million, and I'm like, there's over 187 billionaires in this country. Like, why are we chipping in a little bit? But this is the way it is. If I start a GoFundMe to help with the sort of stopping the ocean coming in on the island here, you know, sponsor a bag of soil for the island, sponsor a tree to plant, you know, it will be people who are just chipping in a fiver here and a fiver there, you know, like the super chats on here. It's not going to be, you know, I'm not going to get some millionaire come along, billionaire, and go, oh, okay, you could really do with some help with that place, you know, to make it survive and thrive and not, you know, turn into, well, one of the other problems we've got is it's not just the sea level rising, because we're sort of downstream in a way from town. We get a lot of crap that builds up in the mangroves. So there's a constant maintenance to be done of picking out like floating plastic bottles and stuff and floating shoes and whatever else people have, cigarette butts, whatever else people have put into the water. And picking them out the mangroves. I mean, it's constant maintenance to try and keep the place like that. But you're never going to get a millionaire or billionaire who's going to go, oh yeah, well, we'll sort everything out that needs to be sorted out. And here's the thing, they totally could. Like us lot, we're left to fight. We're left to fight for every penny. We're left to fight for every cause. And they could cure these problems in an afternoon. They could find a problem and they could solve it with their money. But they don't. If they do anything, they'll say, oh, you give me your money and I'll solve it with that. And that doesn't always touch the sides. And I go back to what Rory Stewart said, and I'm a bit pissed because this sometimes happens to me. Like I made a point of being a militant atheist. Well, I didn't make a point of it. I just was a militant atheist back in the day. And basically all of my arguments that I would use were then featured in the book The God Delusion by Richard Dawkins. And I was so pissed off reading it going, that's what I was saying for years. But it's fine. It's fine. But the same thing sort of has happened with Rory Stewart, because I am a great believer in just give them the money. Give them the money, you know? That's it. Give them the money. None of this NGO work, sending kids out from Europe to go and trek through a jungle to deliver things to None of this setting up, sending a school out to make a toilet block and painting it and stuff. Not just give people in countries in Africa or Asia or wherever you're trying to help out, people who have got a little shop and got something to sell at the side of the road. Just give them money. That's it. It's that simple. I'll tell you two reasons for this. One is that although I've raised money for charity in the past, I raised money for water aid when I was traveling around the world, because I do think that everyone should have a right to clean water, and that should be a fundamental human right. And I also raised money for the UNHCR, which is the Human Rights Commission for the UN. I always felt like it was, the best of a bad lot, if you want me to put it that way. That's a bad way of putting it, and I think that people who work for charities are very well-meaning, and I know that they mean well. But here's the thing, right? Because they have to go through official channels, which means going through government officials in the countries that they are doling out their charity, and because they have to go through local officials in the towns and villages in which they're trying to dole out their charity, right? People are taking a cut at every level. So you got the people working in the UK, obviously they need paying. Then you got the people in Africa who are working there for the charity, they need paying, they need accommodation, they need security. In a lot of these countries, they need to be able to, go around in a white Jeep to make sure they don't get kidnapped or whatever. It's very expensive to put a gang of, I'm sorry, this is going to sound really a bit shit, but here's what it is, right? It costs a lot to protect a bunch of white kids in Kinshasa. Even though, I'm sure they're doing well and they mean well, but I think, right, that money that we give to charities will be better going directly to the people who live in Kinshasa. That's it. Just straight to them. Just like literally no middlemen, no middle women. Just here you go. Here's some money. You've got a business. Here's some money. Grow your business. Because 99 times out of 100, and it's my second point, when people get money like that to build their business, Kel Surprise, they tend not to spend it on sex, drugs, and rock and roll. They tend to spend it on their business because they want to thrive. They want to be able to work more efficiently, to have a little bit more food on the table, to just better themselves. Most people on this planet want to better themselves. I'm like giving examples of the very embarrassingly few people who don't want to better themselves and just want to sit on the couch and play PlayStation all day as some kind of Templar of the rest of humanity. It's just bullshit. It's bullshit. Most people want to better themselves, whether that means getting the fuck out of where they live because of the war on, whether it means getting an education, which I think should be free, whether it means getting healthy because they're ill, whether it means growing their business. They want that, and they need help to do it. But the best way to do that is money. And I'll give an example, and I know this isn't quite the same as charities in Africa, right? And I'm sorry if I'm losing anyone when I'm talking about this. I'm sorry if I'm pissing anyone off who works for a charity and vehemently disagrees with me. But whenever I talk about funding for creatives on the left, and obviously I've got a vested interest in this, but when I talk about it, the reply always comes back of, well, we can give you. So do you need somewhere to go to film stuff? We could rent an office. I'm like, what the fuck? Why do we need an office? I don't need that. Well, in London, you want me to go down to London to film something on my phone? No, I'll just film it where I am. Thank you very much. I don't need an office. I mean, if you want to give me some equipment, that'd be nice. But an office. I don't need an office. We can have a hub where we can all meet together. No. Just give me money. Just give me. I feel like Bob Geldof now. Just give us your fucking money, he says. Which is probably why I haven't got any super chats this morning. Give me some money. Spinal Tap classic track. Yeah, I met a tribe who were cannibals, and I was glad to get away from them. Okay. Tanzania has a scheme for locals to grow potatoes with about £2,000 raised capital per farmer there. Yeah, I mean, this is it. People want to work, but they want to work for a decent amount of money, and they want some security. And what giving people in these countries, investing in them this is what we've got to say. Rather than investing in a railway or a port or a mine or an oil rig or whatever, invest in people. Find people who are doing something interesting or something unique or something that's, a social good, even if it's just a little shop in a village in Lilongwe. It doesn't matter outside Lilongwe. Lilongwe is quite a big city. Invest in them. Invest in people. Don't invest in bloody, shit that they're never going to use. A really good example, like I was talking to WaterAid about this many moons ago, but they were giving the example of ways that it doesn't work, okay, with charity. I.e., there was another charity that went into a slum in India, and they built a toilet facility in the slum. And the people there were like, oh, thanks. Didn't ask for this, but thanks anyway. Bye. And then the people who built it left. And they came back a few years later, and no one was using it as a toilet. Everyone was just using it to put the goats in at night. Like, because they didn't have any concept in that slum of why you would need a toilet. Why would you need? What is this thing? I don't even know what this is. This isn't part of my. So what WaterAid were trying to do is go into villages and teach the people there about sanitation, about the spread of, viruses and from fecal matter. If a fly lands on some shit and then lands on your food, that's why you get ill. And they also found that the best people to tell people about this isn't us. Do you know what I mean? It's not Europeans coming over to Africa to save the Africans. It's African people themselves. So, from my point of view, I'm like, pay them. Pay them. Pay local people to do it. Pay them. Here you go. Here's a load of money. You learn this and teach people in your villages. And here's a secret. Teach women. Every time. Every fucking time. Because if you if you teach women skills, right, whether it is, I was going to say engineering. Engineering is a good example. If you teach a man engineering, right, it's a really good chance he'll fuck off to the big city and go earn loads of money being a chief engineer, right? If you teach a woman engineering, she will generally stay in her town, in her village with her family, and she will generally teach more people the same things. It's not like, I think men see the world as very much a zero-sum game. It's why when I talk about my ideas for films, people are like, don't say that. People will steal it, and then they'll make the film and say, well, bloody let them. A story's a story. I've got plenty more. I mean, if someone found my little black book of development hell and did everything in there, which would be quite difficult because I've done a few things in there. But yeah, did everything in there. I might be a bit upset, but at the end of the day, I don't have 100 million to make the film that I want to make, to stage the stage play that I'd like to put on, or the musical or whatever. I don't have the facilities to do that. So someone else does. Bully for them. I don't see the world as a zero-sum game. If someone else is doing well, I think great. I don't look at that and go, oh, you bastard doing well. But what does fuck me off is when people are born into money and then lord it over us. And if you look at the top people in America right now, like Trump and Elon Musk and Robert F. Kennedy, who's going to get rid of fluoride from the water supply because, he hasn't seen Dr. Strangelove, I guess. All Nepo babies. All of them Nepo babies. Only in the positions that they are in by dint of the fact their fathers were hideously wealthy. And scumbags. Oh, not in Robert F. Kennedy's case, but the other two cases. I mean, Elon Musk's dad has married his own stepdaughter. I don't know if he's married her. He's impregnated her twice. Had 2 children with Elon Musk's stepsister. To make it very difficult when you're sending greetings cards at Christmas. Crowdfunding African potato farm, indeed. A lot of good could be done, not by giving these countries money, but by not systematically stealing from them in the first place, as Acro Dave. Good point, but I'm not talking about giving the countries money. I'm not talking about giving money to the government. I'm not talking about giving money to NGOs or oil companies or whoever. I'm talking about giving it to the people, giving to the people, which is what Rory Stewart says as well. So I feel like I've been saying this for years, and then Rory Stewart says it, and obviously he's got a bigger platform than me. So everyone's like, oh yeah, Rory Stewart's pointing this out. So now I have to refer to Rory Stewart, although I like to think that Rory Stewart refers to me. Although, to give Roy Stewart his credit, he has travelled in a lot of the same places that I've travelled in. So he knows the lay of the land, and he knows how much of a difference it would make if we just gave people money instead of prattling around with these different layers of bureaucracy that we have in international charity situations. Scott Walton, thank you very much. £10 super chat. Sitting around playing video games all day is overrated. I got bored of it every Christmas after 3 days. Yeah, exactly. Exactly. I'm not saying that sitting on your ass and playing video games isn't fun. It absolutely 100% is. And you know what? Watching sports is fun. If you are into that sport, I get it. I completely get it. And I have no problem with it whatsoever. I just contend that there are very, very few people that just want to do that in their life. You know, absolutely nothing else. They don't want to meet anyone. They don't want to raise a family. They don't want to get a job. They just want to sit and watch bargain hunts for the rest of their lives. I don't think those people exist. I do not think those people exist. I think most people, even the evil people, even the lazy people, I don't think people are particularly lazy. I think that it's all to do with whether you inspire people. And there's a big part of that, which is also to do with mental health. A lot of people have depression and they are not diagnosed, so nobody knows. Nobody knows they've got depression, which isn't very helpful. David saying about, David, Malaga, yeah, Malaga's getting floods. Like there's a big warnings going out in Spain at the moment about the floods, which are horrific, climate change. Jesus, Donald Trump is the worst possible person to be in charge of the most powerful country in the world, the worst possible freaking time. I do think it's COP this week, and if I was at home, I would have done a whole episode on talking about COP29. The Committee of Parties talking about climate change. Papua New Guinea didn't go to it this year because they say it's a waste of time, and I'm minded to agree with Papua New Guinea to some extent because the oil companies are all over it. It's being held in Azerbaijan, in Baku, the capital of Azerbaijan, and Azerbaijan was an incredibly wealthy country 100 years ago by dint of the fact it had loads of oil, right? You know, at the beginning of The World Is Not Enough, I think it's The World Is Not Enough. Correct me in the comments if I'm wrong. In the opening sequence of the James Bond film, World Is Not Enough, there's these nodding donkeys. You know, the oil extracting things that pump up and down, and they look like they're called nodding donkeys, nicknamed nodding donkeys. That was filmed in Azerbaijan. So they had hundreds, maybe thousands of these nodding donkeys pulling all the oil out from under the Caspian Sea or just off the shore of the Caspian Sea. And Azerbaijan made its way, before it became part of the USSR, through oil money, through a lot of oil money. And that is why it is absolutely ridiculous that the COP is being held there. Why is it not being held in Mauritius or Tuvalu or Kiribati or the Marshall Islands or somewhere that is critically endangered by climate change? You know, why are they doing it in an oil-rich country? And the president of Azerbaijan yesterday said that oil was a gift from God. I'm like, this is not the message we need to be putting out because, if I was Satan and I wanted to destroy the human race, I would give them oil. So it's not a gift from God, mate. It's a gift from Beelzebub. Trust me on this one. Beelzebub, is he in relation to Beelzebub? He's Beelzebub's brother. Give a man a fish, he'll eat for a day. Give him a fishing rod, and he'll swap it for a fish. Get rid of fluoride. Congrats, Britain. You'll laugh at American teeth soon. Getting rid of fluoride is not great. Ground control to Major Hughes. Hello. Yes. Take your protein pills and may God's love be with you, or something. I got a great advert about women power for the world on YouTube. Give a man a fish, he'll eat for a day. Teach a man to fish, and oil companies will pollute the water and force him into piracy. Yes, Jess. Well, that's exactly what happened in off the coast of Nigeria. Most of the Nigerian pirates that operate in that area are there because of the fact they can't fish anymore. And then you've got the Somali pirates, which wasn't to do with oil, it was to do with fish. There's no navy, no coast guard for Somalia because it's basically an anarchy. And as a result, the trawlers would come from other countries like China and just take all the fish. Take all the fish. I've explained this before, but essentially, there's very few fish in the deep ocean because there's not many nutrients there. It's a bit like a desert for fish, the deep ocean. So certain species can cross it: sharks, whales, dolphins, turtles. But most fish stay in shallows or relatively shallow water, which means, I mean, this is a good thing for fisher folk, is that most fish are found off the coast of a country. And that's why we have these boundaries to say where our fishing rights are. And that's why it's so important to work out where the fishing rights are, because it's not like you can just take a boat to the middle of the Atlantic Ocean and cast a net out and think you're going to catch some fish. You won't. So when a country falls into anarchy, like Somalia in 1991, it looked very tempting for fisher folk from China, and I know that's a long way away, but they freeze the fish, to come along and just basically trawl, just take all the fish, everything, just trawl the seabed. And then the local fishermen, who were just like subsistence fishing, were going out, casting their nets, not catching anything at all. And what did they have? They had a boat, outboard motor, access to AK-47s, because Russia had basically flooded Africa with AK-47s during the Cold War. Happy days, bring it on. Let's do some piracy. And as a result of that piracy, the cost of goods worldwide went up, because shipping companies needed to pay for protection on board the ships. They had to pay for protection personnel who would get on, usually somewhere in like Sri Lanka, and they would stay on the boat until Egypt, probably get off at like Port Said or something, or Suez, and then they would wait for the ship going back, or another ship, and they'll get back that going back, and they'll go back and forth. The reason why there's 4 security staff that need to be on these ships is because they need to sleep. It's a 24-hour service, and there needs to be 2 of them on guard at all times, so they work 12-hour shifts throughout the day. And yeah, not great. And it goes to show, Somalia, I think, why we can't let states fail. And I don't mean that in like, oh, we need to go into the military and sort them out. No. We need to sit down and discuss how we can help those countries get back on their feet, because a failed state is no good, not just for the people who live in that failed state, but it's no good for us either. Not just because it makes cost of goods go up in the case of Somalia, the law of unintended consequences, but also it creates refugees. You have a failed state like Eritrea, which is failing because the government is so autocratic. You generate refugees, and refugees are like manna from heaven for the right wing, because they're like, haha, I'm going to solve this complex problem with an easy thing. I'm going to get rid of all the refugees. I'm going to get rid of all the foreigners. That'll solve the problem of all that stuff in your life that's going wrong. And I want to live in a world where there are no refugees. That's it. There are no refugees, because no one needs to be a refugee, because no one lives in fear of their life. Wouldn't that be nice? The only people who should live in fear of their freedom are criminals. That's it. People who have committed crimes, okay, you're going to go to jail. Maybe you'll get community service. I don't know. Maybe you have to wear an ankle bracelet thing. Anklet. Is it anklet? Is that what it's called? I don't know. I just know that we could do so much better, but it's not going to happen if we just sit back and go, well, there's nothing we can do. There's nothing we can do. There's always something we can do. And it might seem minor. It might seem like it's not doing as much as you possibly could. But even if it's just a few minutes a day, even if it's just helping someone who's struggling, even if it's just being there for someone, it all matters. It all matters. It all tots up. There's 8 billion of us on this planet at the moment. 8 billion. Yeah, you're talking like a fraction of 1% of them want to do something. It'll get done. But we need to just keep fighting, I'm afraid. As much as I would like to just disconnect from the rest of the world and just live here on this island and not have to worry about anything, just disconnect from the internet, not know what's going on. The pleasure of not knowing what's going on, I don't think that's for us, because it just lets them win. And I can see a lot of civil disruption coming for the Trump administration as more and more people see what's happening. I think the biggest sting in the tail is going to be from the Latino population once they discover on January the 20th, I think it's the 20th, when he's sworn in, on day one, what he plans to do, you know, because you got to understand, like, he wants to deport people who don't want to be deported, and he wants to deport them to countries that don't want to take them. Okay? So you're talking about people being forced to go back to somewhere like Venezuela, which is a basket case because it's been run by despots for years, backed by Russia. One of the most oil-rich countries in the world, if not the most oil-rich country in the world, had a referendum earlier this year to invade its neighbor, Guyana, for some reason. But Nicolas Maduro, who's the leader there, is a gobshite. And Chavez, who was the leader before him, total gobshite. Beloved by some on the left for some reason. I have no idea why the people of Venezuela are starving. Here in Panama, we've got a lot of Venezuelan refugees. It's weird to call them refugees because you don't think of them like the same way you think of a refugee fleeing a war zone. But these are people who had to get out of Venezuela because the economy is so bad. Venezuela did a Brexit. They left all of the communities that they were part of in South America and Latin America. All the trading agreements, they ripped them up and said, no, we're going to do our own way and we don't need anyone's help ever. Sound familiar? And their economy just went down the absolute bloody swanee as a result. Also, there's trade sanctions against Venezuela that they could do something about if they so wished, but they don't want to. They want to have a referendum to declare war on their neighbour instead. When I say they, I mean the government. I don't mean the people. The people are all right. I'll let them off. Actually, the people of Venezuela are lovely. All the Venezuelans I've ever met have been beautiful. Just been absolutely fucking wonderful, wonderful people. I've never met Nicolas Maduro, obviously. But yeah, these countries aren't going to want to take back these people. So you have a plane, and the people on the plane who are standing there with their AK-40s, not AK-47s, AR-15s, I guess, they're Americans. They're standing there with their assault rifles, guarding these refugees that are being flown back to their place of origin, right? And then they go to put the plane down in Caracas, capital of Venezuela, and Caracas air traffic control says, no, you're not landing here. We're not going to give you clearance to land. So they can't land. It will be very dangerous and foolhardy for them to land at Caracas airport. So what do? They've got a plane load of migrants from Venezuela. Some of them might be from Mexico. Some of them might be from Guatemala. I think to the Trump administration, they'll all look the same to them. And it's not going to be a good look for that plane to circle back and go back to America. So what are they going to do? What are they going to do with those refugees? They're going to land them in Colombia. Colombia won't take them. They're going to land them here in Panama. Panama won't take them. Where are they going to go? They're going to go back to America, drop them off, put them up in a camp. Camps cost money. They don't want to spend any money. Got Elon Musk. He's going to be efficiency czar, the guy who efficiently made Twitter go down in value from 44 billion to less than a billion in the space of 2 years. Which is really efficient. If the efficiency is some kind of Brewster's Billions kind of weird game where you're playing to try and lose the lot. So what's going to happen? Here's what I fear might happen: is you might start seeing the scumbags who are operating these flights, because don't forget, you've got to be a scumbag psychopath to want to do this job, okay? To volunteer for a job, which means you are taking children away from their parents, taking grandparents away from their grandchildren, and flying them to some other country where they've got nowhere to live, nowhere to stay, no family, no friends. They don't even know the place. They might not even speak the language. So you're going to fly them to there, right? So you've got to be evil to be on that flight to start with, right? Not the refugees. not the migrants, but the people operating the flight. Okay, the private security company that Trump is going to employ to wear balaclavas and have AK-47s, sorry, AR-15s. Keep getting that wrong. Keep getting me USSR mixed up with my USA. I think they're going to do something like what happened under Pinochet's regime in the 1970s in Chile, when they literally pushed men, women, and children off flights into the sea. Prove me wrong. Whatever happens, it's going to be absolutely horrific. And I think that the Latino population, especially the Latinos daft enough to vote for Trump, are going to look on this with absolute horror and be like, what the fuck have I done? And they can wait for the democratic process to roll round in 2 years' time with the midterms. Oh. You sweet summer child, you think there's going to be midterms? Yeah, they're going to be cancelled because there's going to be a disaster. Might be a hurricane, might be an earthquake, might be a plane crash. There will be a disaster. And Trump will use that as a means to suspend the Constitution. I guarantee it. I absolutely guarantee it. We can't have an election. America's at war. America had an election in 1944. I'll have you know. Oh, wow. I've got no new updates on my messages for like ages. So I'm just going to change over to live chat. Let me back. Telephone sanitizers off to the sun. It's a really, really worrying time, says Plum Duff. Where are the Tories? Where were the Tories going to send them? Well, they had a deal with Rwanda to take less than 1%, and it costs an absolute fortune. I don't think Trump and that are going to do that. I don't think Trump's going to do it. I really don't think he's going to do it because, like, why would he pay money when he doesn't need to, when he could just kill people instead? The man is a narcissist. He's a psychopath. He doesn't care about people. He put children in cages this time. He's going to cut out the middleman. And I don't know how long people in America are going to put up with this, but the only way he's going to be stopped, and I'll say this now, right? So you can play this back to me and prove me wrong, because I'd love you to, is not through elections. It's not through, collective action in terms of, like, I don't know, getting together and making YouTube videos. No, the only way I can see Trump not being the president of the United States now until the rest of his life is a military, some kind of military coup or a popular uprising that takes him down. I don't see any other way that this Trump presidency ends other than violence. And a lot of Americans are going to die. A lot of Americans are you're going to shit your pants at how many Americans are going to die over the next few years as a result of one man's psychopathic, narcissistic ambition to be the world king. And yeah, he's having a military parade now. Jesus Christ. Trump likes him young. 8 more years. Yeah. He'll suspend the Constitution. There was a 2-year term limit on Russian presidents. And after Putin served 2 years from 2000 till, served 8 years from 2000 until 2008, he stood down, and his mate, Dmitry Medvedev, he became president, and Trump became prime minister. And then they changed the constitution to say that he could be in president for as long as he likes, really. And now Vladimir Putin's president again. I can see them doing the same thing. Don't forget, Trump runs the Supreme Court. And because the Democrats have no balls and didn't use the opportunities that were given to them by the Supreme Court to put the Supreme Court in jail with no repercussions whatsoever, because it will be an official act, millions of Americans are going to die. And that's on the Democrats. They could have grown a pair, but they chose not to. Trudeau for life, Starmer for life. So sad for America. He might lock up Obama. Yeah, I'm sure he will. I think Obama should leave. I think Obama should leave the country. I think that Kamala Harris should leave the country. I think Nancy Pelosi should leave the country. They're going to say, oh, we should stay and fight, but I think they might end up in jail or worse as a consequence of that. Trump is going to have absolute power. I think this is a bit like when I talk about the fact that people didn't realize that the EU was different from the rest of the world because they found it so easy to get around and so easy to sell things and buy things from around the EU. They thought the rest of the world was like that. It's not. It's difficult. There's barriers every step of the way. And I think in the US, because they've never had to deal with living under a real tyranny, they don't understand what it's like. But there are some people in America who understand what it's like black people, for instance, black women in particular, who voted overwhelmingly for Kamala Harris. 93% voted for Kamala Harris because they've seen it before. They've lived under that tyranny. But a lot of white America hasn't. A lot of middle America has never lived under a tyranny. They don't know what it's like, and they seem to lack the imagination to imagine what it might be like until it's too late. And you've got a lot of Democrats thinking that the system is going to save them. And I'm sorry to be a Debbie Downer, but it won't. It won't save them. It just won't. Oh, I got another super chat, so I'm going to say thank you for that before I go, because I've got to head into town before it starts raining again. I'm having to go through a lot of messages because the messages stopped coming up. Fucking! I just put on super chat to see what my super chat was, right? And it went back to the start screen of YouTube. This YouTube on your phone is just so shit. Oh, here we are. I've got it. Big fun to them, Veg Pie. Thank you so much, Veg Pie, for that. I was looking at your plaque on the wall the other day. I'll send you a photo of it. In fact, I'll take a photo of all the plaques. We've got plaques on the walls and we've got names on the boardwalk. So yeah, I'll take photos of all them and put them on the Ginger Island site. I was really telling people about how Putin did that the other day and just got laughed at, says Vortex Lisa. Yeah, it's true. God, it's so depressing. There's two things that are keeping me going right now. One, I'm not American. Thank fuck I'm not American. And two, mortality, right? Trump will die. And he's nearly 80, so there's a good chance he'll die in the next sort of 20 years. That's not, that's a long time. That's a very, very long time for him to cause a lot of trouble, potentially, but he will die. All things must pass, as they say. Mayor Doc is circling the drain. He's 93 years old. And as soon as the sensible people are back in charge, however long that takes, people like Elon Musk, there's going to be a reckoning. There will be a reckoning on this. They're not going to get away with this the way that the bankers got away with the financial crash. Because with that, it was just money, It was kind of ephemeral. It was numbers. It was numbers on a spreadsheet. It was economies. It was things that people don't really understand. This is going to be stuff that people understand. This is going to be people suffering and people dying on their doorstep. We're going to have a nuclear superpower run as a third world banana republic for the benefit of Donald Trump, for the enrichment of one man, one disgusting, horrific man. And it breaks my heart that if Kamala Harris had won last week, the right wingers wouldn't be waking up in the morning worrying about their future. They wouldn't be waking up worrying about whether they would live or die in the next 10 years. They wouldn't care. Like, they'd just be, okay, well, just, maybe we'll have a little insurrection again in the capital. That'll be fun. But now that Trump's in, everyone I know who's progressive, everyone I know who's gay, trans, black, Latino, is like, what if the eye of Sauron focuses its gaze on me? Because once they've finished doing whatever they want to do to the immigrants, once they've finished doing whatever they want to do to the trans people, they're going to go, who's next? Who's next? And you have to be, let's say, whiter than white, straighter than straight, in order for it not to affect you. And it's really interesting, and I'll leave this on a final note before I go. Robert F. Kennedy is an absolute gobshite. He is one of the richest men in the world, and he's from a dynasty, a political dynasty that's insanely rich. And he's going to take fluoride out of the water, which helps with teeth decay for poorer children. We know this does. We know it helps. So he's going to take away dental health effectively from the poorest children in society in America. He's going to take that, one of the richest people, this nepo baby, this fuckwit, this brainworm gobshite who sounds like he's dying all the time. I wish he was. Like, he is actually saying, I'm going to take this away from the nation's children, and people are cheering him for it. If he takes away vaccines from the nation's children as well, you bet your bottom dollar that the rich will still get those vaccines. Of course they will. The rich will still get their abortions. Of course they will. Like they get their cocaine, which is illegal for the rest of us. But for them, it might as well be legal because it just flows. And as someone born with a bit of a kind of like innate sense of justice, it's really pissing me off that these people are getting away with it. But here's the thing. I don't think they're going to get away with it forever. I don't think that people are going to put up with much of this before they take to the streets, before they start demanding that this disgusting shit stops. But we'll have to wait and see. We will have to wait and see. If anyone takes out Trump for a lovely meal, of course, it'll be one of his. It'll be one of his own. It'll be a MAGA. It'll be someone wearing a red MAGA cap who takes him out. I guarantee it. Because he's going to betray his voters like you would not believe. Around 10% of the population in England has access to fluoridated water. That explains a lot. Most children in the UK who go to hospital go in because of their teeth. He said he's going to kill the drug dealers. Yeah. It's when they see migrant camps for themselves, and when people don't come out the camps, then they will see. Yeah, but Mikey, I think they'll think, well, it's not me. And I don't think there's going to be camps. I think they're just going to push them up the plains, to be honest with you. It makes me angry because by the time the sensible people are back in power, I was stalled for over 10 years by now. So disappointing, all because they are mentally unstable. Yeah, Jennifer, you're right. I mean, it's been 8 years now. It's been 8 years of constant waking up and going, oh, what the fuck? Every day. I don't know if I can put up with another 8 years of this. But, if we have to, then my only consolation is that we'll eventually turn on themselves as Band of Heart Jays. Very good point, my friend, because, Elon Musk and Donald Trump, too big ego. Their egos are too big to fit in one room. But, that's my hope, that it will crumble from the inside. And my hope that people will rise up. And, maybe we can do away with this whole disgusting uber-capitalist system, which allows the rich to get insanely rich while the rest of us fight for every penny. So on that note, thank you very much for the super chats. Thanks for the chats. I'll be back tomorrow at 1:00 for another Island Brew, pontificating here on Ginger Island. And until then, I'll say thank you so much for watching. Hello, good evening, welcome, and goodbye. Ooh.